Hello and welcome back to day 3 of our Cheltenham Live preview, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. The Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival now features 3 Grade 1s. The Mares Hurdle, Andy, is now ran on the Thursday. It's now moved to the new course. And I suppose it's a bit of an interesting betting heat at the moment with the doubts around where Lossiemouth goes. So the good thing around Bet365 currently is that they have no run and no bet markets as well as ante-post markets. So the no run and no bet markets has Lossiemouth as favourite at 8 to 11, Woodoo at 4 to 5, Brighter Days Ahead at 13 to 8, who's obviously running in the champion hurdle, Jade de Grugy at 4 to 1. But if you look at the ante-post market, Woodoo at evens, Lossiemouth at 11 to 4, and Jade de Grugy at 5 to 1. So this race, I suppose, is going to change complexion come Sunday at 9:59 a.m. when we find out where Lossiemouth goes. But preview the race as if Lossiemouth is in it, and if she's not in it, please.
I think the vibes are that she's going to go for the champion hurdle, so that even money could look a reasonably good bet. And I actually think that one of the reasons Lossiemouth is going to the champion hurdle is because they think it's probably just a harder task to beat Woodoo than it is to beat Brighter Days Ahead, arguably. I mean, Woodoo has just been an amazing trajectory throughout the course of the last 18 months. Obviously, she won at Cheltenham last year, only a handicap, but since then she's proven herself in Grady company. She was really good when she beat Potter's Charm and Celtic Dino at Ascot. And then she did what she just needed to do at the Dublin Racing Festival when she beat Feet of a Dancer. I actually think Feet of a Dancer, if she comes here in a bid to sort of nick some place prize money, I think she could be the one in the without the favourite market on the day. I'd probably look towards her because she's a very talented mare, Feet of a Dancer. She got an awful ride in last year's Pertemps. Interestingly, she ran the final circuit quicker than Tiup and Bob Ollinger, but she was just too far behind to affect the actual end results. She finished 4th in the end. And she's proven over 3 miles. So they are contemplating the stayers or the mares. It just depends on the landscape of what runs and what doesn't. So I think Woodoo will be a massive odds-on shot without Lossiemouth. I think she'll win it because she just wins. And Feet of a Dancer would be or each way or without the favourite market alternative.
Yeah, Feet of a Dancer currently available at 12 to 1, no run and no bet. Obviously does have the option of the Stayers Hurdle, but the fact that this has moved to the new course makes it more of a stamina test. Pat, where has the money been coming recently?
Well, it's pretty much low-key, really. I would just say to everyone, just tread very carefully on this race until you get the final decks. I'm thinking Lossiemouth, certainly Brighter Days Ahead. They'll be running on the Tuesday, and that just leaves it open for Woodoo. I think Woodoo's a perfectly decent chance of beating Lossiemouth anyway. She was only 2 lengths behind her at Aintree, and she's still improving, whereas Lossiemouth, she might have just found her ceiling. Tread carefully on the race. Take no chances. It's going to run. That's a big each-way price at the moment. This could easily be a 6-runner race with a 2 to 1 on favourite in Woodoo. But for the race, you'd like to see Lossiemouth run because at least that would generate interest in it. But she's more of interest in the champion hurdle. So this is pretty much a non-event, really. But I would expect in Woodoo to turn up and win. Warren, who do you think is going to win this non-event?
Yeah, Woodoo's just a trainer's dream. Like if I could get a couple of her, I'd be very happy. She just does it day in, day out. Yeah, like I say, I think if Lossiemouth ran, she'd still put it up to her. And yeah, I love her. And she got Gordon out of trouble last year, winning the last race of the meeting. And I think, yeah, she would have a strong chance in this.
Yeah, Dan, she's a completely different mare, isn't she? She managed to be low enough rated that she managed to win the Martin Pipe last season. She's now rated 154. The nice thing about her is she never wins by too far. So that's why she's won 9 out of the 10 of her starts, hasn't she? And she's proven herself a proper Grade 1 mare.
Well, even before that, as a juvenile, she was campaigned fairly sort of ambitiously in sort of those juvenile filly races, and she was only ever really doing enough. And she began that season where she wasn't winning the Martin Pipe. She ran in that mare's handicap hurdle, I think, at Cheltenham, and it looked a really deep race, and she tore it apart. She's been incredibly consistent, really strong stayer. I guess my one hope is that she'll probably end up winning this, and we might well end up seeing her in something like a Stayers Hurdle maybe next year, because the way she's winning her races would suggest that stamina is no issue. I think if there was to be that match between Woodoo and Lossiemouth, the switch to the new course is massive for her. that long galloping straight is all playing in her strengths. I think Feet of a Dancer is almost certainly going to run here now, if Lossiemouth defects to the Champion Hurdle. Another perfectly admirable mare. Her and Take No Chances are pretty much one and the same, really, in that they are not quite Grade 1 standard, but they'll run their race. But there might be a stage a bit like last time where Wadu might look briefly in trouble, but one thing we know about her is she finds under pressure, incredibly consistent, incredibly likeable. I think she'd be a player in those 3-mile staying races maybe next season, because she's just, there's so much to like about her, and hopefully we get to see that opportunity.
I agree. So Wadu to win for the panel, and Feet of a Dancer possibly chanced each way. Wadu available ante-post to evens, obviously the only entry she holds here. So it's whether you take the chance that Lossiemouth heads to the Champion Hurdle, and evens could look very clever on the day. We'll then move on to the Stayers Hurdle. This is arguably one of the most competitive races of the whole Cheltenham Festival. You've got Tiupu at 7-4, no runner, no bet. Honesty Policy 4-1. Cabral de Matan, the horse who was supposed to be going for the Aintree Hurdle, but seems to be going now for the Stayers at 4-1. Bob Ollinger, last year's winner, 6-1. Marchantou, who has a similar profile to Paisley Park from a couple of years ago, available at 7-1 as well. Pat, who's been seeing the money here? Cabral de Matan, I suppose, has been the big springer in the market since he missed his engagement at Fontwell and comes here instead.
Yeah, he's a horse we've wanted to keep on our side, really. He's got that unexposed profile about him, hasn't he? He's yet to prove he gets the trip, which would be a concern, because you'd imagine they'd go a real strong gallop in the race. Tiupu, market leader, but again, he's running this race and been beaten in this race before, so I thought last time out he was particularly impressive, but I think the ground conditions are going to dictate which way the market goes here. Tiupu's got his best form is on soft ground. The weather forecast would imply it's certainly not going to be soft or heavy anyway come Thursday, so there might be reason to take him on. He might be bigger on the day. Honesty Policy has probably got good ground form. And I think we've all been penciled in Honesty Policy. He's the most likely Stayers Hurdle winner going forward. Maybe not this year, but certainly going forward. He's a young horse. He's been beaten both times this year, but they're kind of so-what defeats, really. We all know he's going to be better on the day. I'd expect him to be really popular. Bob Ollinger, again, he's got a form book chance, but he's 11, so, you know, he's not getting any better. Marchantou is, I suppose, the interesting horse in the race. As you touched on, a very Paisley Park, Emma Lavelle profile, but he has to go from handicap company to proper Grade 1 horses. So I'd be with the ground here. If Tiupu, if it's soft ground on the day, he'd be one to get with. He's a little bit more beatable on faster ground. So I think Honesty Policy, I prefer him to Cabral de Matan. Honesty Policy, he looks the type that will win a Stayers Hurdle one day, and he's got youth on his side.
Yeah, Warren, I'll come to you. Cabral de Matan, the question mark is around staying, I suppose. He's been keen going over intermediate trips, but whether he gets the trip, I think, is an extremely talented horse.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. My worry with him would be he travels very strongly in his races. This race is renowned for a horse that would sort of be what we would call behind the bridle, always just nudging away.
Was Cole Harden behind the bridle?
No, but he absolutely shit in.
Yes, he did.
From the front. But that's very unique. You have to have a really good trainer to get him that good. But generally...
Do you still watch that race?
Every now and then when I'm feeling a little bit low. After Tottenham's performance tonight, I'll watch it when I go to bed. Yeah, I do think it does suit a horse just behind the bridle, though. Although he's 11, I think Bob Ollinger, and I go back to what Andy said earlier, you need Henry de Bromhead on your side at Cheltenham. I think he is the master at getting them in peak condition. Bob Ollinger, it's not as if he's had loads and loads of races. I mean, he won very impressively last year. He's had one run this season, a bit of a tune-up. He loves Cheltenham. He likes the better ground. Again, he travels well through his races, but you know he's going to finish. For me, put it this way, what is he, 13-2? I think he'll be in the 3 for sure.
There you go. Each way selection, Bob Ollinger for Stayers Hurdle winning trainer, Warren Greatrex. Andy, who for you?
Yeah, I found this race pretty confusing, particularly now Cabral de Matan's come in. Talented horse. They said they were going to go straight to Aintree, so the fact that Dan's had a rethink and he's willing to roll the dice on a horse he's trying to protect for the future. I think that tells you all you need to know. He's not just throwing the darts at the board here, is he? He really must fancy him to win it. And it's a wide open race. I think Tearpool will struggle on the ground. He did last year. He got bad. I think he's vulnerable if it dries out. So I don't think we need to be having too many strong opinions on this until we know exactly the full field and what's going to run. The one thing I will say is I went to trials day and I stood in the same place halfway up the running. Just wanted to get an impression on that day which horses were finishing off their races really strong because the ground was vile. A lot of horses finished punch drunk, and the only horse that charged up the hill was Marchantou. He absolutely flew up there. The further he went, the better he looked. And Impose Etoile was absolutely the opposite. He was literally walking. So he did a proper number on Nicky Henderson's horse there, and that was on ground that wouldn't have necessarily suited him ideally. Marchantou's a good ground horse. You go back to and watch his Pertemps win, his qualifying win. The ground was quite good that day. So he's improved almost to a head-scratching standard. You think, how on earth is he almost this good? But she did it with Paisley Park, and this lad's going the right way, and he loves Cheltenham. So I'm beginning to warm to him. So I might go down the route with him on the day, but like I say, I'm just keeping an open mind at the moment until I know exactly what the conditions are.
Yeah, Dan, like Andy touched on, ground conditions is going to be very important for this race. Tearpool is seen to best effect on soft and heavy ground, but I think what he needs is a strong pace, and looking through here, I can't spot too many front runners, which might be his undoing.
I think he's almost as effective on quicker ground. We saw that at Christmas, and I love that he ran at Christmas because he'd been pigeonholed into being a soft and heavy ground plodder who can only be seen when he's fresh, and I think that's been almost blown out the water now. They can run him more often on varying conditions, and in a division that often lacks a standard setter, he is that standard. And if he'd actually been running more often for the last 2-3 years, I think he would have amassed an incredible CV, really. But he is vulnerable in company like this, and what you mentioned there about pace angles, I think, is crucial. I think Jack would have learned a lot from last year, where it turned into a relative sprint. That suited Bob Ollinger, who for the best part until that race had never stayed 3 miles. I could have never had him in a million years for that race last year, but it just happened to suit him the way the race developed. I think Jack will be very much aware that he's going to want to make this a stamina test. Then you start looking at the rest, like Cabral de Matan. How does that impact his chances? He is another horse who, if it develops into a test like last year, a relative test of speed, I think he'd beat Bob Ollinger in it. He's the younger horse, the more progressive horse, but is he really going to stay that 3 miles? So who is going to relish what I think will end up being a fair test, because the protagonists are going to want it to be so. And like Andy, I think it's Marchantou, who I think has developed into a real contender. And it's easy to forget that Impose Etoile had led the British until trials day. He had become the leading staying hurdle contender in the division from the UK, and Marchantou brushed him aside. Yes, he was getting weight, which is obviously important, but the way he did it was the manner of a horse going the right way. He adores Cheltenham. He's shown, I think, effective in a relative test of speed and a test of stamina at the trip. No concerns really over ground conditions, whatever way it turns up. I think he's the most solid option, and we've seen before Emma Lavelle is a master at getting these horses to develop through this kind of grade. I think I'm warmed to him more and more. The more I've looked at this race, the more I've come around to Marchantou is just the progressive horse in the division. And Tearpool, while he sets a fair standard, he's shown before that he's pretty beatable.
Panel fairly keen on Marchantou, then available at around 7-1 with Bet365. We'll then move on to the Ryanair Chase. Now, again, I'm going to read through the markets for no runner, no bet and ante-post, because this race could be a bit of a mess until declaration time. If we look at the no runner, no bet prices with Bet365, Factor File 4-7, Gaelic Warrior 5-4, John Bon 11-2, Banbridge 6-1, Hartwood 6-1, Impere Pass 7-1, and then it's 10-1 and bigger the remainders. But if you head to the ante-post side, Factor Files 4-5. Now, this is him not being supplemented for the Gold Cup. Gaelic Warrior is a huge price at 13-2 ante-post in comparison to his no run and no bet market. So Bet365 traders, Pat sat there, seems to think that Factor File is more likely to run in this than Gaelic Warrior. Banbridge, again, 7-1, Hartwood 7-1. The remainder of them aren't too much difference between their no run and no bet and their ante-post markets. But Pat, market vibes, who's going to run in this, Factor File or Gaelic Warrior?
Well, you tell me. I think Factor File, but I'm just looking at the list of runners, and they've all got other entries. I mean, I think the first 8 in the market could all go elsewhere. So I don't know who's going to run and what's going to happen. But as things stand at the moment, we've had no money steering us either way here. We're just going with the vibes that Factor Fire will come here. Probably as a result of JP McManus's horse in the Gold Cup. I know the way you're thinking being popular. He looks as though he has a strong hand in the Gold Cup. And Factor Fire, of course, he is the class act of this race. But we're very much on guess to run. It would be a relief to get the final decks through for this race. One else, I suppose, would have a solid chance that would appeal, if you're not a Factor Filer, is Banbridge, who might finally get his preferred ground for a change at a Cheltenham Festival. He's a classy horse. Were he to run on goodish ground, that would show him in his best light. But we're doing our sum certainly on the fact that Factor Fire will turn up for the race and be odds on and probably win, I suppose. But Banbridge might be the each-way option.
Yeah, Dan, we're going to talk about that King George in probably about half an hour's time with regards to the Gold Cup, but is it fairly obvious, Banbridge dropping back down in trip, better ground, that he should get forecast?
Oh, that'll definitely suit him. They tried him, obviously, over at the Gold Cup trip. Conditions have never really suited him, probably since the Martin Pipe, really, since he won that day. He would be a fair option, if not a very beatable one. Obviously, it all comes down to Factor File, who, if he's in anywhere near the same form as last year, he won't be beaten. But the issue is now with him, and I was looking at this sort of after the DRF, has he somewhat become what we thought Gaelic Warrior is, and that he's not now the most consistent horse in the world? Obviously, he was imperious in this race last year. Nothing would have got close to him. It was a spectacular performance, the performance of the week. He then went to Punchestown, having shown an abundance of pace in the Ryanair. Yes, he was dropping back to 2 miles, but the pace he showed suggested that shouldn't have been an issue. And he was beat after the first fence. Yes, it's end-of-season form. You can maybe forgive him that. Big run in the John Durkan. Again, back to form. And then in the King George, never competitive, really. Beaten less than 10 lengths in the end, but he was never really involved in that race, and then suddenly storms up the hill in the DRF and looks like he's going to go into the Gold Cup and win that. So he's become somewhat of a puzzle of a horse, to me anyway. Clearly on peak form, I think he is the standout here, but he's become a bit of an enigma. Somewhat the opposite as to what perhaps Ford, and he's somewhat fulfilling the Gaelic Warrior prophecy. I suspect he'll run here. Conditions are ideal. Banbridge is getting old. Hartwood can't beat him on what we know. So he's probably going to come here and win. But if you're a layer of him, you are somewhat looking at recent runs and thinking, he's not the most consistent horse in the world anymore. He has his quirks, clearly. And I think you'd be relying on that to get him beat. Yeah, Warren, your thoughts on the race?
No big thoughts really, because I think Factor File, if he comes in this, he'll win, but only for the fact that there's not a lot else that's going to take him on.
Andy, I know you were keen on the Hartwood earlier on in the season. It looks as if now it might be a stronger contest than what it was at that stage with Factor File heading here. I completely get Dan's reservations around him that he has become somewhat inconsistent, but Hartwood, can he reverse the form from last year if Factor File was to run it? I mean, that was a massive performance at the DRF.
It's a bit of a hit and hope for me when I put him up a couple of months ago. I genuinely thought at the time that 14-1 was too big for Hartwood, and Factor File at the time when he'd run moderately in the King George, I thought he was a vulnerable favourite. So that's the reason I pitched in Hartwood, who looked in good nick. But even allowing for the fact that Factor File will probably win this, I'll be more than happy to see Hartwood chase him home, on the basis that if he's chased him out last year, why can't he do it again? I think there's a really good each-way treble on the Thursday, which I'll talk about in a minute. It's going to come to 25-1. We haven't even got to back a winner, and we'll get 25-1 for our money. Hartwood is part of the each-way treble I'm going to advise. The other one is Feet of a Dancer at 12-1. And the other one we'll talk about in a minute in TheMares. I think they'll all be placed, and you can get 25-1, like I say, with the accumulator. I just look at these races differently to everyone else. I accept that Factor File's going to win, but I don't get any fun or pleasure from punting him at 4-5. I just let them win. I'll be pretty sure, though, Hartwood will chase him home. I actually thought he was ridden to pick up the pieces last year. They didn't ride him aggressively. They dropped him out the back and he came through. I think they will ride him a little bit more forward this time, making him even more of an obvious contender to chase home Factor File. So it's pretty straightforward. It's the 1-2 from last year, the best two horses going into it this year, trained by two geniuses, and they should finish first and second again in any particular order.
Okay, you've teased the each-way treble then, Hartwood in the Ryanair Chase. You've then got Feet of the Dancer in the Mare's Hurdle. Who is the third leg of the scumbag each-way bet on the Thursday.
Yeah, the third one is Carrickmorna Spruce, trained by Declan Quealy, who's had a stellar season. Grade 1 winning trainer now. I'll sort that one, the Nullers of Naas. And he's got a really lovely mare here, Carrickmorna Spruce, owned now by Victorious Racing, who purchased this on a bit of a mission from Sheikh Nasser. Sheikh Nasser's always wanted a horse with a chance to run at the Cheltenham Festival. It's just been a bit of a pipe dream of his. Obviously, he's got a lot of horses with George Scott. That's his main modus operandi, to get good horses. You know, the likes of Bay City Roller, who's had a really good year last season. Grade 1 winning horse, Group 1 winning horse. But he's never had a jumper. So the sort of memo was to try and find a horse that had a decent chance of finishing the first 3 or 4 at the Cheltenham Festival and find one that was available to buy. And Jeremy McGrath did a little bit of digging on behalf of Victorious Racing, and I had a little bit of, obviously, look at her form, a bit of input, and we came up with Carrickmorna Spruce based on her overall profile. Never been out the frame in her life, chased down Bambino Fever in bumpers last season, has had a really good season over hurdles. Don't forget she was third behind Skylight Hustle and Talk the Talk when Talk the Talk fell. That was a quality race, that, you know, the great, genuine Grade 1 race against the boys. I'm not saying she'll beat Bambino Fever, far from it. I think Bambino Fever will probably beat her, but I'm pretty sure she'll be in the first 3. And I think we've managed to get Harry Cobden to ride her. So a lot of ducks are in Carrickmorna Spruce's row. So Carrickmorna Spruce, 12 to 1 each way for the mares, Novices. Hartwood, 7 to 1 each way for the Ryanair, and Feet of a Dancer each way for the mares hurdle. I think they all, touch wood, if they do what they should do, should be in the frame. 25 to 1 is that each way treble.
If you drop me your Bet365 usernames at the end, I'll make sure Pat doesn't restrict your account at the end when they all come in. Pat, anything else on the third day?
Haven't even got to back a winner.
Well, I can tell you in the Pertemps final, the 440 on the Thursday, Dan Skelton is very, very sweet on Supremely West. And he was telling me the other week...
More budgie smuggler tour?
How many lengths did you swim?
From the channel, didn't you?
He said to me at the start of the season, the Supremely West's first race of the season was at Cheltenham, and he finished 3rd. And he gave Marchand to, I think, £5 or £7, and he was a 16 to 1 chance not fancied, and Marchand to only beaten 5 lengths. And he was saying, and interesting, the guys put up Marchand 2 maybe to win the stayers. Well, this horse is the same horse as Marchand 2 on that Cheltenham run. Now, he's had a couple of defeats since. Don't worry about that. But he's on a mark of 135. He might carry 10 stone 4. So you look at him, he's owned by Jimmy Fife, who has yet to have a winner at Cheltenham Festival as well. Famous colours, and everything is in place. The horse is so well handicapped, Dan didn't want to run him between now and when he got that last run. So I love everything about Supremely West, apart from the price. He's not been missed in the market. He's short enough, really, but all I can say to him, if you're thinking about is he fancied or not, he is 1,000% fancied for this.
Yeah, I think on that run, I think Marchand 2 is over £10 higher. Supremely West is £2 lower for that run.
That's the one.
Andy and I were there for oddschecker on, was it the November meeting? Or was it the October meeting? So Andy and I, this was the day where everything had to go wide over hurdles. Yes. And we both watched it, and Gal Road went down the inside, and Harry Skelton...
Which Sam Twiston-Davis always does anyway.
Yeah.
He's ridden at Cheltenham for 25 years, but he still doesn't know that going around the inside on bad ground is not the place to be.
And Harry Skelton had ridden 3 winners on the day, or 3 horses to run really well, and had gone wide on all of these runs, and decided to track Sam Twiston-Davis on the inside, which the stewards decided to pull him in for.
Stewards pulled him in for going around the inside.
Yeah, and explained
it was all a misunderstanding, apparently.
Was
so,
it?
Yeah.
It was that was one of those runs that Pat says not to worry about, and yeah.
And this horse was back from 3 to 1 to 5 to 4 on the day, so the Skeltons weren't bothered.
No. So yeah, I can completely see that for the Pertemps. Warren, I'm going to come to you for anything else on the Thursday, please.
Yeah, I'm going to have a winner on this day.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I've got Heracles Westwood in the Kim Muir.
Have you won that race before, Warren?
I have won that race before. Well done. You've done your homework. 2018. What was it called?
Mr. Pro.
Mr. Pro. So, yeah, this horse had 3 runs at Cheltenham this year, twice on the old course, and then once on the new course where he won on New Year's Day. I haven't run him since. I've given him a little tinkering with his wind. I still think he's okay handicapped. I've got Finney Maguire to ride, which in these races is very important to get as good as you can get amateur-wise. He seems very well, and I think he's rock solid to definitely... Well, I think if he runs his race, he won't be out the 4, and I could easily see him winning this.
Excellent. So that's Heracles Westwood in the Kim Muir, currently available at 10-1. The fact that you went to the trouble of booking Finney Maguire for his run in November probably means that this has been a long-term plan.
Possibly. It is very important. When you look at the amateur races, you just want the best you can get. And so his first run back in November, I booked Finney Maguire for the amateur race at the November meeting. He finished second, would have needed the run. And we've kept in contact. And he was very keen to ride again. I can't say any more than that.
Excellent. Don't clap yet, it hasn't won yet. Dan, the rest of the races on Thursday. Mares Novices Hurdle, which Andy's already given you the scumbag each way bet for. Jack Richards Novices Handicap Chase, and the Pertemps that Pat's already given you the winner for.
Yeah, it doesn't leave me much to go at, really, does it? I think in the Pertemps now, Supremely West got to the point where he has been very much found, and in opposition, I'd give you Electric Mason, who was second in that qualifier in October. And obviously, yes, the weights would favour now Supremely West. But I think Electric Mason, that day's run, can be upgraded for a few reasons. He was in an overly prominent position on a day where, or a race rather, where everything that factored in the finish came from off the pace. Mashantu included, Supremely West included. Electric Mason got into a prolonged battle with Gal Road from about 4 out, where Gal Road, probably one of the most consistent horses in training, and Electric Mason had beaten him pretty comprehensively by the time they were turning in. Left Electric Mason in quite a vulnerable position. He was eventually picked off by a horse who I think a lot of us think could be very competitive in a Stayers Hurdle. He then went to Haydock and won what is traditionally and is often the best 3-mile handicap hurdle form in the country, without a question. And again, winners have come out of that left, right and centre. So yes, he is worse off at the weights for Supremely West, but I'd also offer that last season and the season before, there's only 2 real seasons under rules for Chris Gordon. The yard weren't really right at any stage. He was very much performing above expectation, and Chris Gordon's actually had a much better season this year. And also, the back end of last season was very much somewhat curtailed by KTDA, who are all about getting runners at Cheltenham. They almost forced Chris Gordon's hand to run him in the Martin Pipe. That wasn't the plan. He was meant to run in the EBF final, and that was meant to be it. But he was kind of forced into the Martin Pipe late on. Basically ended up in quite a mediocre end of the season for him. But he's extremely unexposed at 3 miles. Been left off fresh, especially for this. I think there's still an awful lot more to come from him, and it's a weak Pertemps. I can see him developing into a horse as at least a 150 horse over 3 miles. And the other one I'll mention who's got a few options, he might not run here, is Brave Fortune in the Kim Muir. He might well end up being Joseph O'Brien's second string if they run Kim Rock, but this is a horse, you just look at some of the chase form he's achieved. You go to Tipperary for his chase debut when he was trained by Pat Doyle. You will scarcely see a May novice chase with such depth to it. Western Fold the winner, Oscar's brother second, Brave Fortune in third, Rushmount in fourth, and Blaze the Way in fifth. Like the figures on that race are actually quite extraordinary, and Brave Fortune has not had the opportunity to show his best over fences just yet. He won second time out, 3 mile 1 on decent ground, and his only 2 starts with Joseph O'Brien thus far are over 2 mile 5, firstly on soft ground, which he doesn't like, and then last time out, 2 mile 5 again, where he's only staying on at the finish, again to a winner who had basically been extremely progressive. He has a few options, National Hunt Chase included, Ultima included. He's not even certain to necessarily run at Cheltenham, but he is a horse who has a massive 3 mile handicap chase in him, but he needs decent ground. And I think there's a case with the way the weather's going, the best ground you're probably going to get might well be on the Thursday in the Kim Muir. So if he was to run here, he might well be the second string on jockey bookings for Joseph O'Brien, which might make him a big price. But to me, I'd have Brave Fortune all day over Kim Rock, because this is the test he wants, and I'm not convinced Kim Rock is a stayer over 3 mile 2.
Yeah, currently available at 20-1 for the Kim Muir. Electric Mason's still available at 10-1 for the Pertemps then for Dan. I'll give my 2 pennies worth for the remainder of the races on Thursday. I think Bambino Fever is going to prove really hard to beat in the Mares Novices hurdle. I think she'll reverse form with Old School Outlaw. Old School Outlaw has shown her best form on softer ground. Obviously, the weather forecast is supposed to be good to soft ground. I think on the Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival, you need to remember that Old School Outlaw had already had the benefit of a recent run when beating Bambino Fever on her reappearance, and that was at a time where Willie Mullins' horses were needing the run. So I think Bambino Fever can justify a short price in that. In the Kim Muir, I'm going to talk about Jericho de Repenay. Now, obviously, his short price is around 4-1. He's somehow got dropped to 145, which means he can run in this off top weight. Derek O'Connor is going to ride. He's been down to school the horse. The big thing around him is whether cheap pieces going back on is going to improve his jumping, because I haven't liked his jumping technique over fences so far, but I think that somewhat has been by design. He showed his huge improvement for spring ground and cheap pieces at the end of last season. They were first-time cheap pieces when he finished second to Doddy the Great in the Pertemps at the Cheltenham Festival last year, then went on to win at the Punchestown Festival, both in cheap pieces. His runs over fences so far this season haven't been with any headgear on. I think this has been a long-term plan. So you're going to get the best jockey in the race, and you're going to get a horse who has lots of talent. Yes, he might be quirky, but yeah, I can see the case for Jericho de Repenay in the Kim Muir. Right, we're going to go to the panel for their best bets on day 3. Warren, I'm going to come to you, and if you don't tip your own horse, I'm going to be gutted.
Heracles Westwood will win.
Will win the Kim Muir at 10-1. Dan, for you.
I'll go for Mashantu in the Stairs Hurdle.
In the Stairs Hurdle. Pat, for you.
I'll be supremely confident in Supremely West.
Around 4-1 for the Pertemps. Andy?
I think Henry de Bromhead will win the Jack Richards. If it's not with Cocktail Divan, who will be a handicap good thing if he doesn't run in the Brown Advisor, but he'll win it with the other Grade 1 horse that he's got in it, Slade Steele, winner of the Supreme Hurdle, Novices Hurdle a couple of years ago. He's finished placed every time he's run so far over fences. Just got outstayed on soft ground last time out behind Joystick, but travelled really well. But good ground, 2.5 miles. Strikes me as being a bit of a Plutard job, who won this race for Henry a few years ago before he went on to be a Gold Cup winner. So if Cocktail Divan doesn't run in it, Slade Steele is a more than admirable deputy.
Excellent. And I am going for a short price, but I really do think Bambino Fever is going to win the Mares Novice Hurdle on the Thursday. Thank you very much for joining us for our Day 3 preview. We'll be back shortly for Day 4.